You arrive in the village just as the sky begins its slow yawn toward afternoon. The sun is doing that thing it does in Anatolia, stretching out sideways in golden streaks, warming the stone walls with the kind of patience only a place this old can inspire. Cats blink at you from the tiled rooftops like they know everything you've done and everything you haven't yet admitted. You try not to take it personally. You're not from here, but you're not from here either. The kind of visitor who could pass for a cousin if pressed. The kind of person whose sandals make the right sound on cobblestone. You could be anyone. That's part of the charm. And this village, nestled into the hills like it forgot to grow up, has exactly one building that still breathes. It's not the mosque, though the call to prayer loops lazily through the sky. It's not the bazaar, though a boy is still trying to sell lemons from a cart that's been crooked since the reign of Abdul Hamid II. It's the hammam, the bathhouse, not ruined, not abandoned, not even quaint. Just continuing. A low dome, gray with age and soot, sits like a bubble halfway sunken into the earth. Vines nibble at its edges. A tiny chimney puffs occasionally, as if exhaling the gossip it couldn't hold inside. It doesn't need a sign. It is the sign. You don't knock. No one knocks. You just enter. That's the first rule. Inside, everything shifts. The air changes from open to womb warm. Stone walls curve gently like a giant's cupped hands. The echo is strange here, soft, yet insistent. Every step you take feels like someone else took it a century before you. And they probably did. You're not alone. That's the second rule. Even if the room seems empty, it isn't. There's always someone in a corner, behind a curtain, under the steam, watching without watching, listening without needing to lean in. You sit. That's the third rule. Sit before you speak. Sit before you soak. Sit before you remember what you came here to forget. Your towel is thin, but it's honest. Cotton and hand-woven and exactly the right level of scratchy. You're not here to be pampered. You're here to be steamed into sincerity. The warm room is just warm enough to lull your heartbeat into compliance. A marble basin drips, slowly, irregularly, like the tick of a grandmother's clock. Buckets, metal and dented, sit waiting beside it like retired actors hoping for one more scene. There is no schedule in a hammam, only rhythms, and the rhythm here is ancient. Ottoman sultans may have had gold-plated scrubbing bowls and eunuchs trained in lathering technique. But out here, in this village, it's all about who tells the best story while pouring water over someone's back. Which brings us to the main purpose of this place. Not hygiene. Not really. Yes, you'll scrub until your skin feels like rice paper. Yes, you'll sweat out decisions you made in 2013. Yes, your pores will experience emotional breakthroughs. But that's just the scenery. The hammam is for information. It's for news whispered through steam. For confessions, delivered casually while exfoliating one's elbow. For deals, marriages, apologies, and threats, all spoken with the plausible deniability of humidity. This is where you learn who's getting divorced, who's not sleeping, who borrowed whose donkey and hasn't returned it. Someone once negotiated a ceasefire between two feuding goat herders in the third basin. That was a Tuesday. People still talk about it. But not directly. Directness is a fourth rule. One you must never break. You don't say, Fatma's daughter ran off with a sailor. You say, the sea air seems to suit some girls more than others. You don't ask, is Miriam pregnant again? You tilt your head, raise your eyebrow, and let the steam fill in the blanks. And should you wish to change the subject, simply reach for the wooden sandal and begin discussing mold. No one will question it, because mold is always relevant. Meanwhile, the hammam keeper, usually a woman of indeterminate age and maximum volume, moves like a prophet through the fog. She's the one who knows where the buckets are hottest, whose shoulders are tense, whose secrets need to be aired like damp towels. Her name is possibly Ice, or Hadisi, or something more surprising like See Her. She does not introduce herself. She simply hands you a keys, a rough mitt made from something halfway between sandpaper and maternal disappointment, and motions for you to get scrubbing. You obey, because this is not a spa. It's a social arena, and exfoliation is your ticket to credibility. The women around you are chatting. They talk in low voices and sharp glances. Some recline like empresses. Others squat beside the marble basins, knees up, pouring water in delicate arcs. One hums. One laughs. One glares into space like she's holding an entire novella between her eyebrows. You don't interrupt. You just listen. And here is what you learn. Someone's brother has returned from Germany with a mustache and a blender. A neighbor's cow has gone missing, possibly kidnapped by the jealous widow 2 courtyards over. The imam's wife has been baking bread at odd hours, which means something, though no one agrees on what. The boy who sweeps the mosque stairs has been spotted at the edge of the forest, singing. Someone's aunt says this means spring is coming early. Someone else says it means scandal. A younger woman, barely past girlhood, asks a question about love, and is answered with 3 stories, 2 warnings, and a proverb about figs. No one mentions her fiancé, but everyone does. Meanwhile, you soak. And as the warmth coils up into your hairline and your limbs melt into marble, you begin to understand something very important. Cleanliness here is political. The dirt you scrub away isn't just sweat and time. It's reputation. It's assumption. It's how you re-enter the village without carrying something you didn't mean to. Your body is the least interesting part of you here. What matters is the aura you leave behind in the steam. And make no mistake, the steam remembers. It clings to your thoughts like perfume on old silk. Which is why some women come just to cry. Quietly, quickly, they slip into a corner. They let the heat do its work. They let go. And then they leave, eyes red, skin glowing, secrets intact. The hammam keeps everything, and tells nothing, at least, not in your words. That's the 5th rule. Whatever is said inside the steam becomes folklore by the time it reaches the courtyard. You towel off eventually. You don't want to. No one ever really does. But even the warmest room must empty. And when you step back out into the sunlight, blinking like a new thing, you notice something. You feel lighter, not just clean, not just relaxed. You've been rewritten slightly, less like a tourist, more like a whisper. You hear a voice behind you say, "That one might belong," and you keep walking. The second time you return to the hammam, no one looks up. This is how you know you're doing it right. The first time there was a ripple, subtle, like someone dropping a cherry pit in a full teacup. A glance, a shift, a pause that didn't quite make sense unless you'd grown up noticing the difference between a sigh and a scoff. But now you're furniture. The good kind, familiar, polished by use, not flashy enough to be a threat. The kind of presence that blends into the tile, the steam, the stories. Someone's cousin, someone's niece, someone who once knew someone who touched someone famous. You're in. It's late morning this time, just before the day gets hot enough to make bread rise by accident. Inside the hammam, the heat is steady, the kind that doesn't yell. It just insists. Your towel waits for you in a neat bundle beside a low bench. Your slippers have already been turned inward, a silent invitation. You don't ask who did it. That would be rude. You step over the threshold, and the air folds around you like thick linen. And that's when you hear her, not the hammam keeper. She's already humming something vaguely Ottoman in the corner, folding towels with the flair of a magician folding reality. Not the soap seller who smells like orange blossom and side-eye. No, this voice is new. New and old at the same time. An old woman. Narrow as a broomstick, sharp as a tangerine rind, is talking to no one and everyone. She's in the hottest part of the room naturally, where the steam curls like a cat and the walls sweat before you do. She has the kind of voice that doesn't rise above the noise, it replaces it. She's telling a story. You sit. You listen. That's still the rule. She says, "There was once a bride so shy, she only whispered her vows to the ceiling. The imam leaned in 3 times before he gave up and said, 'If God heard it, that's enough for me.' The women around her giggle. One repeats the line under her breath. Another rolls her eyes like she's heard the story before, but smiles anyway. The old woman continues, 'That bride lived in this village. Her house still stands. Half a roof, a stubborn fig tree, a cat with one eye.' Someone mutters, 'That cat's still around.' The old woman ignores her. She bathed here every Thursday, never spoke, but her towel always smelled like lavender and secrets. You feel it, don't you? That particular mix of fiction and memory. The way facts dissolve in the steam. The way truth is just a well-aged rumor with better posture. That's hammam knowledge. And this old woman is a library in human form. She remembers every marriage that started in this steam, every feud that ended with a scrub, every baby born 9 months after a suspiciously long bath. She knows the prayers for birth, the songs for mourning, the one curse that makes the evil eye flinch and the milk curdle. She's the one you come to when you want to know if your dream means rain, marriage, or betrayal. And she's here, in the flesh, wrapped in a towel older than the Republic. You try not to stare. You fail. She notices. She says, "You're the one with the quiet feet." It's not a question. You nod. She waves her hand like she's brushing crumbs off fate. Quiet feet hear more. Then she tells another story. This one is about a woman who scrubbed her sadness away until her skin gleamed like glass. One day, her reflection slipped off the water and ran away. People say they still see it sometimes, waiting by the basin, brushing its hair. You pretend not to shiver. The woman beside you, middle-aged, practical, the type who could start a fire with just a glance, leans over. She makes up half of it. You whisper back, "Which half?" She grins. "Whichever one you believe." More water is poured. More limbs are stretched. Someone cracks their knuckles like a punctuation mark. A lull. And then, "Did you hear what happened to the baker's cousin?" The question drops like a fig from an overripe tree. Everyone leans in without moving. The woman continues, eyes narrowed to slits of story light. "He tried to marry a woman from the next village. Fancy one. wore French perfume and cursed in 3 languages. This is not a compliment. He brought her here once. Gasps. Literal gasps. She didn't sweat. Silence. Didn't sweat? Can you believe? Sat like a statue. Said it was unhygienic. Someone whispers. She said that? In Turkish. No. The woman replies darkly. In French. The room groans. A woman mutters, well, that marriage didn't last. Everyone nods. You don't ask what happened. You don't need to. In the hammam, stories come fully assembled. You soak your cloth in warm water. You begin to scrub. Not too hard. Not too soft. Just enough to feel like you're removing something that doesn't belong. And maybe you are. Because here's the thing about gossip. It's not always cruel. Sometimes, it's the only way a woman's life gets recorded. The official records will say, born, married, bore children, died. But here in the hammam, they'll say, she had a laugh like falling spoons. She used to sing to her bread while it baked. She once walked to the next village in a rainstorm just to slap her sister-in-law. She lived. And in this steam that's sacred. Outside, the village marches on. Men drink tea. Boys chase goats. The butcher sharpens a knife he doesn't need to use today. Life goes forward in that linear way. But inside the hammam, time curls. Here, you can sit next to a woman who died 20 years ago and still hear her thoughts about rosewater versus lemon oil. Here, you can be scrubbed by a stranger and leave feeling more known than after 5 years of friendship. Here, you can hear your future, hidden in the way someone asks if you've gained weight. Someone pours water over your back. It's hot but not punishing. Just enough to wake up the skin behind your shoulder blades. You exhale. Someone hums a lullaby off-key, probably on purpose. A girl asks how many dates one should eat on New Year's to ensure fertility. The answers range from 3 to 75. The argument lasts 6 minutes and 2 rinse cycles. You close your eyes. And just before you drift into that perfect half-sleep only achieved in tiled rooms at 48 degrees Celsius, you hear someone say, next week. They say the governor's wife is coming. Gasps. Again. They come so easily here. A woman mutters. She better sweat. You smile into the marble. Because you're starting to understand the rules. And not just the written ones. Not the 5 rules we've named. The real ones. Like, don't bring your pride into the hot room. Don't leave your towel behind. Don't pretend you're better than steam. And always, rinse twice before speaking your truth. By your 3rd visit, someone knows your name. Not everyone. Not the old woman with the eyebrow that twitches when someone lies. Not the hammam keeper, who stores names like winter coal. Sparingly, quietly, and with suspicion. But someone. You hear it float through the steam like a bird that wandered indoors. A soft syllable wrapped in familiarity. Not shouted. Not even spoken to you directly. Just placed, gently, into the conversation like a clove into an orange. You smile. This is how it begins. With names. Then towels. Then stories. Today the benches are crowded. Not with tourists, not with outsiders. Just more of the usual faces. The kind that would be background extras in your life if you lived here full-time. Your aunt's cousin's neighbor, the woman who once yelled at a cloud for blocking the sun, the mother of the boy who once fell asleep on a donkey. They're all here, and they're buzzing. There's a wedding coming up. Not a royal one. Just a decent village affair. Local boy, local girl, appropriate dowry, 2.5 goats, 1 gold bracelet that used to belong to someone's great-grandmother, unless that was a lie no one wants to fact-check. The bride-to-be has not come to the hammam. This is noteworthy. This is suspicious, whispers one woman, combing her hair into a slick crown. Who doesn't come to the hammam before their wedding? She's shy, someone replies. She's proud, says another. She's pregnant, says a third. There is a silence. Then someone else murmurs, she's never even been to this hammam. The silence grows roots. Now, to be fair, not every bride is required to soak her virtue in steam before vows are exchanged. Not every wedding demands a bathhouse appearance. But still, in villages like this, a wedding doesn't begin at the ceremony. It begins here, in the warm echo of gossip, in the clatter of wooden clogs by the doorway, in the gentle politics of who scrubs your back and who offers you rose soap. This is where a future mother-in-law sizes up a daughter-in-law's towel-folding technique, where whispers of past suitors get rinsed away or resurface depending on who's listening. This premarital vetting, scented with eucalyptus. And so the absence of the bride-to-be is like a dropped hairpin on marble, small but loud. She was raised in Istanbul. One woman offers by way of defense. In Istanbul they don't bathe? In Istanbul they pay for steam, someone says, rolling their eyes like that's the greatest crime of all. Then, as always, someone steers the subject into deeper waters. She's never even milked a goat, gasps again. You wonder if there's a special setting for it. An instinctual muscle that contracts every time social tradition is mildly threatened. She speaks French, someone else adds. Though in this context it's said the way you might say, she eats soup with her hands. She reads novels. The old woman mutters, her face nearly hidden by steam. Well, so do we, someone counters. Not romantic ones, comes the reply. Ah, there it is. The real issue. Romance, that reckless ingredient. It doesn't belong in village weddings. Or, more accurately, it doesn't belong outside of them. Love is expected to arrive precisely on time. After the mothers have shaken hands, the fathers have haggled over dowries, and the neighbors have silently judged the quality of the ring. But here comes a girl who reads French novels and doesn't bathe in the proper order. Something will have to be done. In the meantime, your own body begins to relax. You're halfway into your third bucket of warm rinse when a towel smacks the wall behind you. Someone's stolen it. A voice snaps. You open your eyes. It's the practical woman from before, the one who told you half the stories are made up. She's standing with her arms crossed and her temper unspooling like wet laundry. My towel. It was here. Now it's not. This is serious. Towels in a hammam are sacred. Not because they're special, we're talking cotton rectangles, not royal heirlooms, but because they're yours. They mark your spot, your scent, your order in the great chain of rinsing. To take someone's towel, even by accident, is to upset the bathhouse ecology. Immediately, a flurry of denials. I've only used mine. I brought my own. I haven't even dried yet. The keeper arrives, summoned by the tone if not the volume. She's carrying a copper bowl and the kind of authority you can't buy. You can only inherit from an aunt who once wrangled 6 sisters and a snake with a wooden spoon. Which towel? She asks. Striped. Red and blue. Folded or hung? Folded. By the basin. The keeper nods, then disappears without a word. This is the other magic of the hammam. Its rhythms. The invisible rules enforced not by law, but by generations of women who have perfected the quiet art of justice. She returns 3 minutes later with a look of stern amusement. She's holding the towel. Found in the cooling room, she says. Gasps, quieter ones this time, but still present. Cooling rooms are for post-bath resting. To place someone's towel there before they've finished is a statement. No one asks who did it. That would be rude. Instead, someone makes tea. Crisis averted. But the message hangs in the air like steam refusing to rise. You file the scene away. Another law in the invisible code. Don't touch what isn't yours, especially not someone's cloth. The rest of the day unfolds like a well-worn sheet. A grandmother sings a lullaby while washing her granddaughter's hair. A teenager practices the phrase, "He looked at me like this," 3 times, each with increasing eyebrow nuance. The old woman tells a story about a merchant who lost his heart and found it again in a bucket of soap water. You don't ask for clarification. Outside, the muezzin calls the faithful to prayer. Inside, someone hums in harmony. And as the light shifts from gold to pearl on the tiles, the women begin to gather their things. But not before one of them turns to you. You're staying for the henna night, yes? Henna night.
Kına gecesi.
The pre-wedding ritual. The part where tears are encouraged, songs are sung, and palms are stained with blessings and farewells. You hadn't planned to, but the way she asks, it's not really a question. And honestly, you're curious. About the bride who won't bathe. About the village that can't stop whispering. About the stories that may or may not be true. You nod. And just like that, you're part of the next chapter. The henna night begins with hesitation. Not from the hosts. They're sweeping corners, lighting candles, arranging trays of sweets like the fate of the marriage depends on sugar symmetry. And not from the village women, who arrive early, stay long, and carry with them the kind of quiet anticipation that only builds in tiled places where tears are tradition and laughter is formal wear. The hesitation is in the air itself. You feel it just past the doorway, a ripple in the warmth, attention folded into the scent of rosewater and fig cakes. You are offered a seat on a floor cushion that looks like it once hosted a very patient cat. Someone hands you a glass of sherbet, sweetened with pomegranate and clove, and you sip it slowly. The liquid is colder than expected, like the kind of memory you don't want to remember but find yourself drinking anyway. This is not a party. This is a farewell. Henna night, Kina Jesisai, has always walked that strange line between celebration and mourning. It's the last night a girl belongs fully to her mother's home, and that makes it complicated. The singing starts early, but not the happy songs yet. These are the adjutler, the laments, softly at first, words rising like steam, fragile, floating, impossible to hold. You don't understand all the lyrics, but the tone tells you everything. The women sing of letting go, of mothers tying red sashes around their daughters' waists, the Bikarat Kasaji, the virginity belt, and of sisters braiding each other's hair for the last time under the same roof. And in the middle of it all, the bride sits silent. She is veiled, not just metaphorically, but quite literally, draped in a sheer red cloth, glittering slightly under lantern light. Her hands rest on her knees. Her posture is rigid, as if she's been carved out of expectation. Still no sign of soap or steam. She did not visit the bathhouse. But now she is here, and that means something. She hasn't cried yet, though, and that's a problem. Henna night etiquette is firm on one point. The bride must weep. Whether out of sorrow, sentiment, or mild onion exposure, it doesn't matter. Her tears are part of the ritual. Without them, the songs fall flat. One of the older women leans over and murmurs, "She's stubborn." Another whispers, "She's strong." Someone adds, "She'll cry when it's too late." These are not unkind words, just observational. In a village this small, character analysis is a collective hobby. Everyone is a part-time novelist. And yet, as you watch her, the girl under the red veil, you wonder if she's not feeling something else entirely. Not pride, not fear, maybe detachment, like she's already left, and her body's just here out of social courtesy. Then comes the henna itself. A silver tray is brought in, decorated with candles, flowers, and tiny pouches of crushed plant dye. The room grows still. Someone sings the henna song, that old chestnut of farewell verses sung, so often it lives in muscle memory. Her hands are unwrapped, palms open, slightly trembling. The oldest woman in the room steps forward. You recognize her. She scolded a teenager last week for wearing slippers too early in spring. Tonight, she is the matriarch. She dips her finger into the henna paste and makes a small, swirling mark in each of the bride's hands. A spiral. Not a dot, not a line. A spiral. You're not sure if this is traditional or improvisational, but the gesture feels meaningful. The rest of the room watches, breathing in sync. The henna is wrapped gently in cloth. The bride's hands now hold both dye and expectation. Still she does not cry. And so the lights are dimmed, the singing slows, and the ritual steps aside for what happens next. Storytelling. Yes. In the hush that follows ceremonial gestures, women begin to tell stories. Not with the grandeur of myths or the polish of parables. These are small, personal, oddly specific tales. My husband didn't speak to me for 3 days after our wedding because I burned the rice. I met mine at a molasses fair. He smelled like cumin for a year. My mother told me the best revenge is doing the laundry poorly for exactly 6 weeks. Laughter this time. Gentle. Restorative. The kind of laughter that breaks nothing but tension. Someone nudges you with a question. Do you want to tell a story? You panic briefly. You weren't prepared for audience participation. But before you can decline politely, a woman across the room beats you to it. She launches into a long, winding tale about her sister-in-law's failed attempt to make perfume out of onions. It's equal parts tragic and absurd. You are saved. The bride shifts slightly. No one says anything, but everyone notices. Then finally, she makes a sound. It's not a sob, not a whimper, not the theatrical wail expected of village henna nights. It's a laugh, a small one, quick, escaping her before she can stop it. But it's real. And when it happens, every woman in the room reacts like someone just pulled the stopper out of a centuries-old bottle of emotion. They exhale. A few clap quietly. Someone even shouts, "Now that's a good omen." The bride lowers her head, and when she lifts it again, there is moisture in her eyes. Not enough to call tears, but enough to declare the ritual complete. You look down at your sherbet glass and find it empty. A sign, perhaps, that the night is nearly over. The women begin to rise, adjusting scarves and scooping up trays. The bride is helped to her feet, her henna-covered hands held like delicate scrolls. No bathhouse, but in this moment no one cares. She laughed, and that's enough. You help fold a few cushions. Someone presses a leftover sweet into your hand, sticky with syrup and gratitude. Outside, the air has cooled. The moon hangs low like a polished copper bowl, and the village is quiet. No gossip now, no speculation, just footsteps returning to homes, shadows lengthening across narrow streets, and the scent of henna lingering on fingertips that have told more stories than they've held. As you walk back past the bathhouse, now closed and dark, you feel the shift. Not everything happens under steam. Some rituals bloom in rooms filled only with women, music, and mild emotional blackmail. But they matter, and they stay with you. Tomorrow, perhaps, the bride will bathe. Or perhaps she'll move to Istanbul with her French novels and onion-free perfume. Either way, the bathhouse will remember. And so will you. Morning is gentler here than it has any right to be. Elsewhere, dawn comes charging in with horns and hustle. But in this village, it slips under the door like warm smoke. You hear it before you see it. The creak of shutters, the shuffle of slippers on stone, the low murmur of women boiling water long before anyone needs tea. You step outside with sleep still fogging your thoughts. The air smells of baked clay, jasmine, and wood smoke, with a whisper of yesterday's henna. There's a cat curled on a windowsill, washing its paw like it's performing a sacred ritual. The call to prayer has already come and gone, but time moves differently here. Like honey in winter, you follow the sound of soft voices and tin basins clinking toward the bathhouse. Yes, again. But this time it's the morning shift. This is not the theatrical crowd. No weddings, no betrothal deals, no scandalous cousin confessions. These are the elder women, the veterans, the ones who've seen 10 sultans rise and fall, if not politically, then domestically. They arrive slowly, carrying bundles wrapped in floral cloth, towels, soaps, sometimes a snack. A few of them use canes, but their backs are straighter than yours. The hammam door creaks open. Inside, the space is quieter, dimmer. The light from the central dome filters down like liquid pearl, brushing across the marble floor in sleepy spirals. You are allowed in only because you know how to behave softly. This morning is not about bathing. Not entirely. It's about memory. A woman in her 70s sits at the edge of the platform, unwrapping her bundle with practiced grace. Her towel is worn thin in places, but smells of lavender. She has a scar on her forearm. Not dramatic, just enough to suggest she once knew how to handle a sheep shears and maybe a sister-in-law. She nods at you. That's all. No need for introductions here. The hammam knows who you are. She begins to lather her skin with bidam soap, made from wild pistachios. The smell is faintly nutty, with an earthy green edge. The soap foams slowly, patiently, like it's been trained not to startle. You sit beside her. Water drips somewhere behind you. This, she says suddenly, was her mother's hour. You blink. Not the statement you were expecting, but then again, she doesn't strike you as the small talk type. She used to come before anyone else. Said the morning steam was honest. You nod. Even now, she adds. I feel her. Right there. She gestures to a corner where the light meets the tiles at a lazy angle. You look and you almost believe it. The silence stretches. Then she says, My daughter never comes. Not angrily, just as a note, a line on a ledger. She says it's old-fashioned, bad for the hair. You smile politely, unsure whether to agree or apologize. She goes to a salon. With foreign music and coffee you have to order like a password. There's no judgment in her voice, just confusion, tinged with curiosity. Then she shrugs. Maybe the next one will return. Things move in circles. There's that spiral again. The same one from the henna night. Turns up often here like the bathhouse itself. Spinning time into loops. You take a breath and notice how your body has slowed. Your heartbeat, your shoulders, your thoughts. She splashes water over her knees and says, "They used to say gossip floated here like rose petals. I say it sinks, heavy as bread in broth." You laugh. She smiles. Not because it's funny, but because it's true. Behind her, another woman hums an old tune, off-key but warm. A lullaby from a region no longer marked on maps. One of those borderland melodies that survive in grandmothers long after the borders don't. Someone lights a bit of incense near the furnace. The scent coils upward, a shy wisp of cedar and myrrh. You think back to what you know of this place, how it was first built during the reign of Selim II, when architects made buildings that could outlast dynasties and smell good doing it. There's a small inscription above the arch that no one seems to notice. Clean water purifies more than just skin. Historians still debate whether that was theological, metaphorical, or just excellent branding. You notice something odd now. None of the women are speaking much. Not because they're unfriendly, but because they don't need to. They know each other's rhythms. A look, a tilt of the head, a shift of the basin, that's all it takes. Their bodies speak in steam and gesture. In years of shared space, one washes another's back. One reaches for soap before the other asks. One hums just as the towels are wrung out. And all of it unfolds with the grace of habit. It's like watching a dance choreographed over decades. You realize this is a kind of archive. Not one kept on paper or tablets, but on skin, in hands, in posture. These women carry history in the way they rinse their feet. The younger ones, those who still come, watch closely, mimicking without realizing.
No syllabus. No lecture.
Just repetition. It's not loud, but it's lasting. Eventually, the water cools. The elders begin to wrap their towels and prepare for tea. There's always tea afterward. Today it's sage with a little lemon. The metal teapot whistles like it's gossiping with the stove. The woman with the pistachio soap stands. She wrings out her towel and says, "Next week, God willing." You nod, but she narrows her eyes slightly. "No," she corrects. "Not God willing. I'm 83. If I'm here next week, it's because my knees allow it." You smile. "Still," she adds, softening, "God willing." They begin to leave. Slowly, gracefully.
No rush.
One by one. Their footsteps echo on the warm marble, mixing with the soft hiss of evaporating droplets and the fading scent of cedar. And then you're alone. Just you, the marble, and the memory of steam. The light from the dome now cuts sharper angles. It's almost noon, a time too bright for secrets, too practical for rituals. But for a while, you sat in the quiet presence of women who no longer needed to explain themselves. And you felt something sacred, not loud, not glorious, just sacred. You gather your things. Outside, the world is stirring. children chasing chickens, men pretending to discuss business when really they're comparing lentil stew techniques. The day has begun, but inside you, still faintly, the steam lingers, and the silence of elder women follows you like a soft shawl. There's a sound you start to recognize now, not the splash of water or the hush of voices. It's the soft, deliberate clink of coins against polished wood. The payment table, set just inside the vestibule of the hammam, where warm air meets cool stone and guests briefly debate whether to dry their hair or pretend the damp is refreshing. This is where the towel matron reigns. Her name is Ice, just Ice. Everyone knows her. No one calls her Auntie. No one calls her Miss. Just like the weather or gravity. Constant, unbending, occasionally moody. She sits on a short stool, low enough to look up at everyone, but somehow never appearing subordinate. In front of her, a short-legged table with 6 drawers and a faint smell of lemon wax. A teapot sits beside her elbow, steaming steadily like a faithful guard dog. The drawers contain towels, but also information. You're beginning to understand that the towels are not all the same. There are the public ones, coarse, worn, practical. The ones you're handed when you're a newcomer or someone forgets your name. There are the mid-tier ones, striped, soft, with tassels still intact. You earn these after 3 consecutive weeks of regular attendance, a referral from a trusted bather, or an especially charming joke. Then there are the good towels, the real ones, faintly rose-scented, hand-woven cotton, cool to the touch but warm by instinct. Some say they belonged to a sultana once, or a silk merchant's wife who bathed with pearls under her knees. These don't come out easily, and when they do, Ice does not smile. She makes a note, mentally, invisibly, and files the borrower under owed a favor. Because here's the thing. The bathhouse runs on a strange blend of trust and ledger. The entry fee, token. The tea, practically free. But the favors, those stack. And Ice keeps them all in her invisible book. You ask if she ever writes anything down. She looks at you the way a lion looks at a deer who's trying to negotiate. No need, she says, sipping her tea. I remember who comes in wet and leaves dry. You're not sure what that means, but it feels profound. Behind her, a set of hooks holds bundles for regulars. Some are labeled with ribbon colors, others with tiny charms. A blue bead, a shell, a knot of wool. Nothing written, all coded, all remembered. You see one woman retrieve a bundle and hand over 2 walnuts and a fig. Ice accepts the trade without blinking. Another woman leaves a small pot of hand-ground coffee next to the stool. It's not about barter. It's about relationship. If Ice likes you, your towel smells of mint. If she doesn't, it smells like nothing. And that is the worst smell of all. She gestures to you now. Sit, she says. You obey. She pours you tea without asking what kind you prefer. It's sage, of course, with a hint of clove. She watches you sip it. Not too hot, she asks. You shake your head. Good, she says, then immediately loses interest in your existence. 2 young girls approach. They giggle. Newcomers, clearly. Their headscarves are damp, their eyes wide. They try to pay with crumpled lira notes. Ice frowns. Too much, she says. This is a bath, not Istanbul. They offer change. She frowns harder. Too little. Do I look like a mosque fountain? They don't know what to say. She sighs. You owe me 1 lemon soap, she says. Each. They nod, trembling. She waves them in with the flick of 2 fingers. The towel drawer slides open. They receive mid-tier stripes. This is ice power. Not wealth. Not authority. Balance. She doesn't just run the hammam. She keeps it upright, like the keystone in an arch. There's a story, probably apocryphal, that she once refused entry to the mayor's wife because she brought factory-made olive soap. She came back 3 days later, Ice says, with her mother-in-law and a proper bar. You're not sure whether to be impressed or terrified. Ice is both a gatekeeper and a historian. Ask her about the old marble panel with the chipped tile, and she'll say, that's from the winter a goat broke in and wouldn't leave, or point to the soot mark on the outer dome. Wedding party. Fireworks. Idiots. She claims the oldest stone basin still holds the scent of a woman who bathed with rose oil every Thursday for 50 years. You think marble forgets? She asks. You shake your head, now wise enough to simply agree. She watches people the way a clock watches hours. She knows who's pregnant before they do. She knows which feud is real and which is performative. She once stopped a woman mid-rinse and said, your sister-in-law is lying. No one knows what about. But the woman returned the next day with a smug look and a new towel. You ask her carefully what she thinks of gossip. She shrugs. It's not gossip if it's true, she says. You stop nodding. But you're learning, she adds. That's why your tea gets clove now. She sips hers. A slow moment passes. Next week, she says, we'll teach you how to fold towels properly. You beam. She frowns. Don't look so proud. Towels are traitors if you fold them wrong. You believe her. She gestures toward the inner door. Go. Before the steam gets lazy. You rise. She adds, and don't forget your sandals this time. You left them last week like a drunken prince. You flush. Ice waves you away. You pass into the marble warmth again. But now you do so with a towel that smells faintly of time. You don't ask how she knew. You don't need to. Inside, the steam greets you like a familiar pet. You move slowly now, softly, as if Ice is still watching, because she probably is. And somewhere in her drawer, there is now a ribbon with your name on it. There's a moment in the bathhouse, somewhere between warm and too warm, when everything begins to blur. Not dangerously, not dizzy, just slow. The lines between your thoughts and the patterns in the marble floor soften. Your inner monologue loses its punctuation. Time, never particularly urgent in here, begins to behave like melted honey. You sit now in the corner alcove, the one shaped like a shallow bowl built for lingering. A cracked tile behind you has the faint outline of a tulip, though someone once claimed it's a flamingo if you squint. A grandmother settles beside you. Not yours, just a grandmother. The kind who has no name anymore because the entire town calls her Nine. A Turkish word for granny, yes, but also a job title. She is wrapped in thin cotton, her feet tucked up like a stork. Too much water on the floor, she says, without looking at you. Somebody's daughter is getting married. You blink. That didn't answer any question. But also you didn't ask one. Nine has the energy of someone who used to command a kitchen that ran on eye contact and perfectly timed sarcasm. I can smell burnt milk, she says, sniffing the steam. New bride must have tried to make rice pudding. poor thing. You wonder if she means metaphorically. 9 glances at your feet. Sit straighter, she says. You'll dream of sea monsters if your heels touch. You adjust. She nods. Good. There are several rules in the hammam. Most are not posted. Many contradict each other. All are enforced by women like 9, who carry authority in their posture, their tea-brewing skills, and their uncanny ability to recite your family's genealogy faster than you can remember your cousin's name. A lull begins. The water trickles. Soap bubbles glide slowly across stone like tiny philosophical thoughts. And then, someone starts to sing. You don't know who it is. Maybe it's the girl in the far corner, rinsing her arms with a bowl. Maybe it's the older woman across from her, absently scrubbing her feet. The voice is low, dusky, not loud. A folk song, old enough that the words have rounded corners. The kind sung while slicing vegetables or combing a daughter's hair. 9 sighs. She sings it too slowly, she mutters. You listen. The lyrics are about a river that forgot its name and a lover who left his shoes behind. Or maybe the other way around. Across the dome, a second voice joins in off-key, but boldly. Then a third, warmer, steadier. A gentle chorus forms, echoing just slightly off the curved ceiling. The acoustics of the hammam turn the song into a soft blanket of sound, stitched together with memory and humidity. No one claps. This isn't performance. It's tradition. Because here, songs aren't for concerts. They're containers. You learn that women use them to carry things. Secrets. Sorrows. Small, sharp joys. The lyrics change depending on the town, the year, the marriage that just ended, or the baby that didn't come. Today's version, you're told, has a new verse added last spring, after the imam's daughter eloped with a boy from the olive market. 9 hums along, quietly, but with sharp phrasing. She's lived long enough to know which words to emphasize. You close your eyes. The steam thickens. The heat settles behind your eyes, in the space where daydreams live. Then a splash. A sharp one. Someone's dumped a bucket too close to the central drain. You open one eye. It's Layla. Again. She's back. This time with what looks like rosewater, an embroidered pillow, and enough emotional drama to start a novella. Layla moves with the intention of being watched. She flutters her towel like a peacock and rearranges her hair 3 times in 2 minutes. She's hunting, though not in the romantic sense. No, Layla is after sympathy, which, in the bathhouse, is a currency stronger than lira. She flops beside the marble basin with a sigh so theatrical you're surprised there's no accompanying violin. 9 narrows her eyes. 3rd time this week, she mutters. Either she's been jilted again or her fig tree won't fruit. Layla begins. My aunt, she announces, has accused me of stealing her hairpin. The room goes still. This is serious. Hairpins, especially antique ones, are borderline sacred. She left it in my drawer, Layla continues, and now she tells the whole market I borrow without asking. Gasps. Tutang. One woman crosses herself. Another shakes her head solemnly. Layla dabs dramatically at her eye with a corner of her towel. You're almost impressed. Then someone says quietly, well, you did borrow her baking dish for 7 years. Layla spins toward the voice, scandalized. That, she says, was different. She never used it. 9 sips her tea. She's clearly enjoying herself. The crowd begins to murmur. Speculation bubbles like the copper boiler behind the walls. Was it intentional? Was it revenge for the quince jam incident? Is this related to the embroidery theft of '86? No one says it directly, but everyone knows the bathhouse is the village court. This is where stories are aired, verdicts are softened, and punishment is meted out in teaspoons of passive aggression. Eventually, Layla's accuser, her aunt, appears, drenched in attitude and eucalyptus oil. She makes a beeline for Layla. 9 lifts a hand. Not much, just enough. They pause. 9 speaks. If a pin is truly lost, let it find its way back through clean water. Everyone nods. Nobody knows what that means, but it feels like closure. Layla sulks. The aunt huffs. A compromise is reached. The next soap order will be split, and neither will wear the disputed pin to weddings for 6 months. Justice. You glance at 9. She looks mildly disappointed. She was hoping for something juicier. Then she turns to you. You still think this place is about hygiene? She asks, amused. You open your mouth. She interrupts. Wrong, she says. It's about memory. The water scrubs your skin, yes, but the rest of you stays sticky with stories. You glance at the trickle of steam against the far wall. It looks like a poem trying to form. 9 leans back. I once told a girl she'd marry the baker's son, she says. She laughed, said she'd marry a poet. You raise an eyebrow. And she married the baker's son. He writes poetry now. She smiles, smug. You hear the wooden door creak. Someone enters with a fresh basket of limes. Someone else leaves behind a cracked comb and a letter she never intends to send. The bathhouse shifts slightly. The steam inhales. And 9 whispers, half to herself, You'll dream of rivers tonight. You return from the cold plunge a slightly different person. Not spiritually, not epiphanically, just a little squeakier. Your skin feels like a peeled grape, a very relaxed, well-traveled grape with nothing left to prove. You settle near the edge of the main hall now, somewhere between the big stone basin and a stack of aging towels that smell faintly of mint and grandmotherly comfort. The heat has mellowed to a level that no longer interrogates your soul. It just politely asks if you're still awake. There's a pile of lemons in a copper bowl nearby. Fresh, bright, just acidic enough to look like they could cut through betrayal if you threw them hard enough. They're not for eating. Not here. They're for scenting hands, soothing scalps, and occasionally, according to one woman, for placing in your shoe to keep away bad thoughts. You don't ask. You've learned better by now. The bathhouse has rules. They aren't always logical, but they've been stress-tested across generations of aunties, sisters, widows, midwives, and the occasional adventurous niece with a science degree. Some of the women are washing. Some are whispering. Others sit in still silence, the kind that only happens when everything's been said and everyone knows exactly how everyone else feels about it. You hear a splash, then a giggle, then a very soft scream. It comes from the hallway that leads to the drying room. And it is followed by 2 things. A woman rushing out, clutching her towel like a shield. The unmistakable sound of someone saying, I told you it was haunted. You glance around. No one seems especially alarmed. No running. No panic. Just a few raised eyebrows and one elderly woman whispering something that includes the word jinn, and at least 3 dramatic pauses. You follow the cautious procession into the hallway. It's narrow, tiled, and filled with that faintly spicy scent of sandalwood and warm hair oil. At the far end, beside a chipped wooden bench, is the culprit. A single pair of wet slippers turned backwards. Apparently, they were facing forward moments ago. Now they're not. That's it. That's the haunting. You wait for more. But the women around you are already in high gear, analyzing, speculating, invoking minor protective charms. She never liked this room, someone says cryptically, nodding toward the slippers. Who? You ask. They ignore you. A towel rustles. Someone drops a clove into their pocket. Another woman, younger and more skeptical, squints at the floor. Probably just slipped and rotated. The eldest among them, a woman whose voice sounds like cracked sugar, hisses, "Don't name it." That invites it in. You retreat back to the main room, slightly more amused than afraid. Turns out the Hammam ghost is less poltergeist and more passive-aggressive roommate. But you understand the psychology. After all, the bathhouse is full of memories. Why shouldn't a few of them decide to linger? Back in the marble hall, a new ritual is unfolding. A towel folding contest. Not officially, of course. Nothing is official in the bathhouse except hydration. But there's a quiet war between two women near the hot basin. One folds with sharp, aggressive geometry, triangles, squares, layers like phyllo pastry. The other opts for the delicate art of the swan. Yes, the towel swan, beak and all. They pretend not to notice each other. But their eyes dart across the steam every few minutes, measuring corners, fluff ratios, and towel loft. Layla, your ever-dramatic bathhouse acquaintance, leans in and whispers, "It's about more than towels." You nod solemnly, as if you, too, have survived the great napkin origami feud of 2011. The towel tension continues. In the background, the rhythmic scrubbing of a keys glove echoes softly. You're not ready to talk about it. Across the room, a mother gently scrubs her child's back. The little girl has her eyes closed and a flower in her hair. Marigold, you think. It's quiet. And then someone mentions politics. A moment of danger, like lightning in the distance. But the group handles it masterfully. A quick pivot to soup recipes. One woman distracts with a joke about her husband mistaking face cream for tahini. Crisis averted. This is how bathhouse conversation works. It meanders. Seduces. It suddenly demands your opinion on whether saffron is overused in desserts. You agree too quickly. Now you're trapped in a passionate debate between two sisters about the ethics of flavored yogurt. You nod. You smile. You pretend you've tasted all the options. Then, mercifully, 9 returns. The elder stateswoman of the bathhouse. She sits beside you again, towel like a crown, steam curling at her ankles. "There's a secret to surviving here," she says. You wait. Never outshine someone's towel arrangement, she warns. Unless you're willing to become the story. She glances toward the 2 towel artists. The swan has gained a tiny pearl necklace. The square folder has retaliated by monogramming hers with a spare soap sliver. 9 snorts. "Children," she mutters, sipping her tea. You feel the warmth in your bones again. Not from the heat. From the rhythms. The absurdity. The tradition. The way every woman here is part of a story that's been folded and refolded across centuries. Somewhere behind you, someone starts humming. It's a lullaby, not quite a melody, more like a breath that forgot to end. You exhale slowly. The lemon bowl is half empty now. 9 picks one up, slices it with a small knife from her pouch, and rubs the juice behind her ears. For clarity, she explains, you consider doing the same. The ghost hasn't returned. Or maybe it has, and it's just admiring the towel swan. You're okay with that. It begins, as these things often do, with an olive. Or rather, with an olive pit, lodged neatly between the tiles near the wooden door. You wouldn't have noticed it. Small, shriveled, politely ignored by most of the room, until the woman with the pink hair wrap gasps and points. Aha! She says, delighted. A sign. Everyone leans in. It is indeed a pit. Nothing special. Except to her. She scoops it up like it's a family heirloom and drops it into her sash. That settles it, she says. She likes him. You try to parse the logic. Apparently, during last week's henna night, a woman dropped the olive into her drink after hearing a certain man's name. If she hadn't liked him, she would have swallowed it or thrown it across the room. The floor pit is proof. The kind that leaves no reasonable doubt, unless you're not reasonable. You are not. So you ask, but couldn't it have just fallen? Gasps all around. One of the women clutches her towel as if shielding it from your cynicism. Fell? Someone whispers. On that tile? At that angle? The woman with the pink wrap smiles serenely.
No.
This is a message. Then she turns and hums a tune you don't recognize. Someone in the corner joins in. And now, just like that, it's become a song. Not loud. Not formal, just passed around the room like tea. The words float above the steam. Something about a girl whose hands smell like cloves and who forgets to tie her scarf when she's near a certain someone. Half the women sing. The other half smile as if they know exactly who it's about. 9, the elder from earlier, gives you a sideways glance. Songs always have a target, she says. You nod a little too earnestly. Now they think you're the target. The song shifts keys. A tambourine appears from someone's bag. Someone claps in rhythm using 2 slices of soap. No one explains how this became a musical. You sit there, half lost, half lulled, deeply aware that you're only understanding about 70% of what's happening. And still, you wouldn't leave if you could. There's a rhythm to bathhouse gossip. It never charges. Coils. Like steam. It wraps around your legs, then your thoughts. And before long, you're in the middle of it. Arms soaked, heart softened, and mind just fuzzy enough to believe an olive pit might be a prophecy. Near the fountain, 2 girls are painting each other's feet with henna. They're young, maybe cousins. They're giggling in that language of half-secrets, drawn-out syllables, and exaggerated gestures that needs no translation. They're drawing flowers and moons and something that looks suspiciously like a pomegranate. It's not for decoration. Well, it is, but not just for that. It's also a form of storytelling. Every symbol in their henna has a meaning. A wish, a warning, a reference to someone they may or may not marry next spring. One draws an eye, careful, symmetrical, with a lash that flicks up like a comma. For protection, she says. Against envy. The other one nods solemnly, then draws a chicken. You raise an eyebrow. For fun, she shrugs. Scholars would weep at this mixture of sacred and silly. But the girls don't mind. They live in a world where henna is both scripture and stand-up comedy. They'll peel the dried paste tomorrow and whisper over how dark it stains. The darker, the more passionate the love, according to a rule no one can prove but everyone respects. Behind you, a small commotion begins. A mother is chasing her toddler, who is running full speed with a bath bucket on his head like a knight charging into war. He nearly crashes into the swan towel. Gasps. The room holds its breath. But the towel survives. Just barely. 9 mutters something that might be a prayer or just a deeply felt sigh. The toddler's mother laughs and scoops him up, water trailing behind her like a wet comet. Someone remarks how the child has his father's nose. Another argues it's his grandfather's. Within moments, they've built an entire family tree, including that one aunt who disappeared to Antalya and now sells embroidered napkins by the sea. You ask who she was. They say, "You wouldn't believe it even if we told you." You believe them. Near the main basin, the temperature shifts again. Someone's adding eucalyptus to the steam. It hits your nose like a polite thunderclap. Suddenly, your sinuses have opinions again. Everyone leans back slightly, soaking in the moment. Eyes close. Shoulders drop. Joints let go. Someone starts telling a story about a wedding that went wrong. The bride fainted. The groom sneezed during his vows. The mother-in-law wore white. But the scandal wasn't any of those things. No, it was that the bride forgot to send soap to the bathhouse ladies beforehand. A disaster. 9 huffs. Unforgivable. Apparently, it's customary to gift small soaps to the hammam women before a wedding. A gesture of goodwill, of invitation. Not sending them is like not inviting your neighbors to your own funeral, someone says. You picture that. A quiet cemetery. A pile of unclaimed baklava. Your ghost? Embarrassed. The bride did send the soaps later. Embossed, perfumed, wrapped in silk. But the damage was done. They say her first baby was born without eyebrows, someone whispers. You nearly choke on your tea. They don't smile. Not even a twitch. That's the thing about bathhouse gossip. You never quite know when it's sincere and when it's staged. They like it that way, because here, the truth is just one towel fold away from fiction. And nobody wants to unfold it. It's getting late. You can feel it not on your watch, but in the way the steam has slowed. The songs have faded. The henna's almost dry. The pit has been forgotten. But before you can stand, a young girl tugs at your towel. She's shy, barely audible. Would you like a flower? You nod. She hands you a marigold. Bright, stubborn, slightly wilted. It smells like childhood and overwatered gardens. You tuck it behind your ear. And in that moment, you are no longer a visitor. You are part of the fold. One of the many stories that will be remembered, misquoted, and mildly embellished next week over mint tea and olive pits. Just the way it should be. The cat returns just as you're about to leave. You know the one. Ginger fur. One white paw. Wears his indifference like a royal sash. He pads through the steam as if it were drawn just for him. Someone calls him Seeker. Sugar. He ignores it. Of course. Sugar is not the kind of cat to respond to names. He's not even the kind of cat to admit he's a cat. More of a self-employed energy auditor who occasionally accepts sardines in lieu of payment. Today, he hops up onto the warm ledge by the basin and stares at you like you've interrupted a committee meeting he didn't schedule. Do you have a towel license? His eyes seem to say. He yawns, curls into a comma, and decides to tolerate your presence. The peace offering is made. You pass him a sliver of cheese from the tea tray. He blinks once, which is either a thank you or a formal ceasefire. 9 watches the exchange and nods. If the cat trusts you, she says, you're probably not cursed. Probably. A ringing endorsement. You lean back and sip what might be your 5th glass of tea. It's gotten stronger now. More bitter. Almost philosophical. Pairs nicely with the atmosphere, which has shifted again. The songs have gone. Now it's time for prophecies. A woman near the soap trays has begun flipping teacups. You know the ritual, or at least you've heard of it. Drink the tea. Swirl the grounds. Invert the cup. Let the future settle. She holds one overturned cup like a delicate bomb. Steam still rises from its curved belly. She lifts it slowly, theatrically. There is a pause. Then, there is a path. Everyone leans in. She squints, tilts, sighs, and a fish. A few gasps. One delighted squeal. A fish is good, 9 says. Movement. Riches. Maybe a wedding. Or maybe she's just hungry. Someone mumbles. That earns a few chuckles but no objections. Because here, skepticism is part of the ritual. A kind of seasoning. No reading is ever taken entirely seriously, except when it is. The woman continues. There's also a something like a broom. A moment of silence. Someone interprets. Clean beginnings? Or being swept away? Or she needs to tidy her terrace. Sugar stretches and meows pointedly. They take that as confirmation. The woman whose cup it was looks mildly alarmed. She didn't expect this much response. She expected polite vagueness. Instead, she's getting a full literary review of her tea sediment. Let's do yours next, someone says to you. Before you can protest, your glass is snatched, and the cup is turned. The fortune teller squints. She hums. You are carrying something heavy. Could be metaphor. Could be soap. She peers closer. A burden of choice, she says. You have no idea what that means. It sounds poetic, though. Sleepy. Vague enough to dream on. Then she adds, also a goat. A goat? Maybe it means stubbornness, someone offers. Maybe you'll win a raffle, says another. Maybe it's just a goat, shrugs 9. Not everything's symbolic. You nod, grateful. Still, you find yourself wondering, what if there is a goat? Before this existential riddle can deepen, a new voice rises near the fountain. It's the woman with the pink hair wrap again. She has returned with news. Apparently, the man from the Olive Pit saga has been seen buying figs. From her stall. Not just 1 or 2. A whole kilo. And everyone knows figs mean something. It's the way he asked for them. With eye contact. And a pause. There is much buzzing. Was it real interest? Just a craving? Did he mention anyone else? No. Just said, these look sweet, and left. The room is now deeply invested in Figman's intentions. A council is formed. They analyze Fig's softness, tone of voice, even elbow angle. You listen, amused, until someone taps your shoulder. What did he look like? They ask you. You blink. You've never seen him. This fact is ignored. You're sure he didn't have a scar? Someone asks. What about his shoes? Did he smell like rosemary? The investigation swirls. Theories are born and discarded. At one point, someone suggests a secret twin. By now, The air smells like fig leaves and curiosity. 9 claps twice to restore order. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, she says. We haven't even seen his handwriting. Apparently this matters. He once wrote his name on a bakery receipt, and someone kept it. Handwriting reveals soul shape, they say. You start to wonder if perhaps the bathhouse is less a place of bathing and more a lightly perfumed detective agency. No one has solved any mysteries, but they feel solved. That's enough. Outside, the light shifts. You glimpse it through the latticed window. Golden, a little lazy, like honey that's been sun-warmed and left on a windowsill. You wrap your towel tighter. The warmth of the room clings to your skin, but there's a crispness trying to seep in. Even Sugar the cat senses it. He hops down, tail high, and vanishes through a hidden flap behind the changing room curtain. You didn't even know that door existed. Maybe it didn't until now. Someone begins folding towels into swans. Another into a rabbit. Another into what looks like an accordion but might just be wishful thinking. It's not for show. It's not for guests. It's for the joy of shape. Here, creativity is a form of prayer. And everything can be a little ridiculous if you fold it with love. You sit a while longer watching. The room has quieted. The last cups have been drained. The soap trays are down to their smallest pieces. A final drizzle of lavender oil perfumes the air. 9 passes you a comb. You'll need this, she says. You begin brushing out your hair. Slowly, deliberately, as if brushing were a form of storytelling too. And maybe it is. Each knot, a memory. Each stroke, a letting go. A woman nearby sighs contentedly and whispers, "We should come again tomorrow." Her friend nods. "But bring better gossip." And then, just before the scene can fade entirely, someone asks, "What if he meant the figs for her mother?" Gasps again. And with that, the cycle begins anew. By now, you've been towel-wrapped, oiled, combed, steeped in gossip, and spiritually evaluated by a cat. Congratulations! You've reached what locals call the folding hour. It's not an official clock time. More of a vibe. A mood the steam takes on when the final stories are wrung from the tiles, and the bathhouse begins preparing itself to forget, until next time. And during the folding hour, something odd happens. The towels start to tell stories. Not out loud, of course. They're towels. They're subtle. But every fold, every crease, every carefully aligned corner seems to say something about the person who left it. You watch as 9 folds hers into something precise, elegant, not quite military, but confident. No flair, just quiet competence. Another woman folds hers like a cinnamon roll. Someone else attempts a swan, collapses into a humble pile. They laugh and call it a sleepy cloud. You're handed a fresh towel and invited to fold yours however feels right. No pressure, no judgment, but also deep cultural scrutiny. You opt for a basic rectangle. It's humble, straightforward, slightly crooked. 9 peers at it. Introvert who overthinks things, she declares. You blink. Correct. She winks. Folding continues. It becomes meditative. One woman folds while humming. Another matches her corners to the rhythm of a remembered lullaby. You begin to see why this isn't just cleanup. It's a ritual. The folding is the exhale. After the heat, the scrub, the singing, and the teasing, This is where everything settles. And in the quiet that follows, someone says it. She's young, wrapped in a pink towel with little fish embroidered on the edges. She clears her throat. Her voice trembles. I think I might want to marry him. Every head turns. No one speaks. Even Sugar the cat, now snoozing near the sandals, flicks an ear in acknowledgement. It's about Figman, of course. But now the atmosphere changes. This is no longer fun gossip. This is the sacred awkwardness of sincerity. The girl blushes. I know it sounds silly. It doesn't. Or maybe it does. But everyone understands anyway. She's fallen in love with a look, or an idea, or a fig transaction. It hardly matters. The feeling is real. And this is the safest place in the world to say it aloud. 9 smiles gently. Do you want him to know? The girl hesitates. I don't know. Maybe. Eventually. A long pause. Then, he smells like cardamom, she adds softly. A universal murmur of approval. Cardamom is promising. It's not a garlic man. Not a man who uses too much rosewater. No one makes fun of her. Instead, a plan begins forming. Loose, non-specific, gentle as a breeze. Someone suggests baking something. Someone else offers to accidentally mention it to his aunt. It's all hypothetical, but the energy has shifted. There's kindness in the air now, protective, quietly excited. Even if nothing comes of it, there's something beautiful about this moment. A girl, still damp from the hammam, admitting hope. Of course, this being a bathhouse, someone immediately says, just make sure he doesn't wear ankle socks. And the room erupts into laughter. The solemnity breaks, but the sweetness lingers. You find yourself smiling, not at her, with her. And in that same softened atmosphere, you notice the bathhouse itself again. It's breathing, not literally, but there's something about the way the steam moves through the arches, the way the tiles glisten, that feels alive. As if the walls remember every story told here. They don't repeat them. They're not gossips, these walls. But they listen. They know. You stand and stretch. The marble beneath your feet is warm in patches, cool in others. It feels like standing on a map of memories. You wonder how many secrets have been whispered against this exact column. How many decisions were made over basins of rosewater? How many lives turned softly, pivoted gently, right here in this echoing room that smells like soap and cumin and maybe just a little like longing? Someone places a flower behind your ear. You don't see who. It stays. And just when you think it's time to leave, 9 says, wait. She disappears behind a curtain and returns holding a letter, an actual folded piece of paper.
No envelope.
It looks worn, carried. Reread. She hands it to you. It's not yours, she says, but it wants to be read. You look confused. She shrugs. It was left here weeks ago. No name. No one came back for it. You have the kind of face it might like. That's a very specific compliment. You unfold the letter. The handwriting is crooked, bold, a little chaotic. It says, to the person I didn't speak to, I saw you in the steam. You sang under your breath. I meant to say you reminded me of spring. I didn't. I hope someone tells you someday. You read it twice. Then a third time. 9 watches. It's been read, she says, satisfied. Now it can rest. You hand it back. She tucks it under the towel swan. Sugar the cat sneezes once and curls back into his tail. The girl in the fish towel sighs contentedly. And someone, somewhere, begins singing the low, soft hum of the Hammam's farewell tune. It's not official, but it's known. Time to begin the slow-motion goodbye. It's evening now, but not dark. The kind of not dark that hangs softly over courtyards after the sun has vanished behind a neighbor's wall. But the light hasn't quite figured out where to go. A gold-gray hour. The hour where jasmine opens. The Hammam glows differently now. Candles begin appearing in the corners. They're not lit yet, just waiting. Small terracotta bowls filled with wax and cotton wicks, balanced like promises on tiled ledges. Someone clicks their tongue. We need the green tea one. Lavender tonight, another argues. A low debate begins over which candle smells like the best kind of closure. Meanwhile, 9 has begun counting towels with alarming precision. She's sorting them by memory, not color. 2 for the woman who smelled like nutmeg, she mutters. 1 for the aunt who kept sighing. And where's the one sugar sat on? It's blessed now. Sure enough, the blessed towel is draped carefully over a bench. Slightly damp and lightly coated in cat fur. No one dares touch it. A light breeze floats through the Hammam's carved vent stones. The air smells of steam, worn lemon soap, and the leftover sweetness of someone's lunch. Then, something odd happens. From a crack between the cushions, you spot it. A small brass object. You reach for it. It's warm, round, about the size of a coin but thicker, engraved with what looks like a tulip and a crescent moon. You tilt your head. It looks familiar. Not quite currency. Not jewelry either. 9 peers over your shoulder. Well, well, she says. In the old days, she explains. Before receipts, before paper, before half the tiles in here were even laid, there were tokens. Carved by hand, stamped in secret, given to regulars or, let's say, enthusiastic guests. It meant you were welcome without question. You turn it over in your hand. Like a VIP pass? She smiles. Like an invisible hug from a marble wall. You ask how it ended up here. She shrugs.
No idea.
Maybe someone dropped it 3 weeks ago. Or 3 centuries. Hard to tell in a place that forgets on purpose. You hold the token gently. It's smooth, but not soulless. There's a weight to it. Not heavy, just meaningful. You tuck it into your palm. For later. By now, someone's decided on the lavender candle. A flame flickers to life. It smells like sleep. The light catches the steam and makes shadows curl along the domed ceiling like sleepy fish. Sugar the cat stretches. Sighs. Settles back into his private square of tile, which no one dares trespass. You hear footsteps. Soft ones. An old woman, hair tied in a scarf the color of quince jam, enters with a teapot. She moves like she's been here forever, like she built the walls herself and simply forgot to tell anyone. Without speaking, she sets the pot on a stone tray, pours into tiny cups the size of dreams. The tea is clear, pale, and smells of sage and something you can't name. 9 hands you one. It's goodbye tea, she explains. You sip it when your feet are pruny, your heart is soft, and your gossip quota has been responsibly exceeded. You drink. It's bitter at first, then warm, then a flavor that tastes exactly like being told you were remembered. A woman across the room says, "Did you hear the potter's youngest has started making vases with feet?" Someone responds, "Of course." He says it's symbolic of domestic instability. A sleepy chuckle drifts up like incense. The topics have softened now. Nobody's scheming. Nobody's matchmaking. It's the phase of bathhouse gossip where everything becomes abstract. Someone's cousin might be moving to Izmir. There's a rumor about a pomegranate that glows. I dreamed of my grandmother. She was wearing green and eating bread. Nobody asks for explanations. You just let the stories float. And somewhere behind it all, you realize the bathhouse is getting ready to close. Not by slamming a door or clanging a bell, but by slowly turning down the volume of existence. The steam thins. The chatter softens. The floor grows cooler. There's no last call. But you feel it, the way you feel a lullaby coming to its final hum. You glance at the bath token again. 9 notices. "You should keep it," she says, not unkindly. Someone might ask for it someday, or maybe no one ever will. Either way, it's yours now. You ask why. She gives you a look that means, because it's not about ownership, it's about resonance. You understand completely, despite not understanding at all. More candles flicker to life. Now the hammam glows like a lantern from inside the earth. Someone begins humming again. It's not a real song. It's the kind of hum you make when your feet are sore in a happy way. The old woman returns to collect the cups. As she passes you, she places a single almond in your hand. No words, just a nod. An almond farewell. You nibble it slowly. Tastes like soap, history, and something slightly magical. Possibly it was stored next to the henna. 9 begins brushing her hair. Not for glamour, just to calm it. Brushing in this context is also a form of storytelling. Each stroke says, "I was here. I listened. I let myself soften." You're handed a brush, not as a task, as a ceremony. You brush once, twice. By the 3rd stroke, your brain begins to fog in a way that feels like resting on purpose. Someone sneezes softly, not a loud sneeze, the kind of sneeze that apologizes as it exits. Sugar the cat flicks his tail and meows exactly once. Translation: it is time, not to go, just time. The hammam is closing, not quickly, not decisively, more like a slow exhale after a long story. The kind of closing that doesn't shut the door, it simply stops offering new sentences. You're still here, of course. Sitting on a bench worn smooth by years of elbows, elbows, elbows. There's steam still clinging to the edges of your skin. You're not wet, exactly, just gently dissolved. 9 hands you a towel the color of baked bread crust. "It's dry," she says, like that's an achievement. She's right. Most things here are damp in some philosophical way. You drape the towel over your shoulders, and for a moment, you forget every appointment you've ever missed. From across the room, a woman is drawing on soap. You blink. She's holding a round, unused cake of olive oil soap, and she's etching into it with a toothpick. Tiny, precise letters. You shuffle over. She looks up briefly, nods a greeting like she's known you since your last life, then goes back to carving. You glance at the lines. They're poetry. Sanskrit? No Arabic. No, wait, something else. You squint. Turkish. But old Turkish. Ottoman script. Curved like vines, delicate as sighs. You ask her what she's writing. She shrugs. Whatever showed up in my brain when I stepped out of the steam room. You ask why soap. She grins. Because paper is too serious. Soap washes away whether you like it or not. No one expects soap to last. That makes sense. She finishes one bar, sets it aside, reaches for another. Each bar now contains a stanza, a line, a fragment, a poem that will eventually be used to wash someone's armpit. Somewhere in the corner, Sugar the cat sneezes again. Translation: Art is fleeting. Get over it. Someone lights a final candle. The flame dances wildly before settling down like a child told to behave. 9 stands, towel now turbaned over her hair. She taps her foot. Shoes, she reminds you. Oh, right. You glance over to where everyone's shoes are stored. A wooden shelf near the door, like a chorus line of forgotten errands. Your own pair stares at you, dusty and half-hearted. They look louder than you remember. You hesitate. Don't worry, says the Poetry on Soap lady. They'll feel quieter once you've walked outside. She's not wrong. Even the world feels padded when you leave a hammam. You sit, begin sliding your feet back in. They don't resist, but they also don't exactly cooperate. 9 joins you. She leans in close. Whispers, there's a rumor the potter's vases are actually based on his dreams. He refuses to admit it. You nod solemnly. This is important information. You will carry it forever, or at least until lunch. As you tie your laces, you hear the soft creak of the main door opening. A breeze enters, bringing with it a reminder. The outside world still exists. It smells like bread, horses, and someone arguing politely about apricots. You exhale. Still barefoot, the poetry lady lifts her soap tray and disappears through a side passage you hadn't noticed before. No one stops her. No one questions her. In hammam etiquette, when a poet leaves with clean hands and damp socks, you let her go. Sugar follows, but only halfway. He stops at the threshold, glances back, and sits down like a guardian of mysteries no one asked him to guard. 9 offers you a wrapped piece of Turkish delight. It's slightly squished and smells vaguely of cardamom and hair conditioner. You eat it anyway. Tastes like something that was prepared while someone hummed. You thank her. She shrugs. You made it to the end. You pause. The end of what? 9 smiles. The bathhouse story. There's always one. You just had yours. You think about it. There was the almond, the soap poet, the gossip, the ghost tile, the brass token, a full narrative arc. And yet, nothing happened. You didn't conquer a city. You didn't uncover a scandal. You didn't even get exfoliated particularly well. But somehow you feel folded, like laundry done with love. 9 begins collecting empty cups. You take one last look around. The dome ceiling is damp. The tiles shimmer in the candlelight. You realize the space has witnessed births, deaths, marriages, betrayals, reconciliations, henna parties, divorces, song rehearsals, secret letters, and more foot-related injuries than anyone will ever admit. It's more than just steam. It's collective memory held in terracotta and lye. You whisper a thank you to the tiles, to sugar, to the poet who writes on dissolving things, to the rumors that shape reputations like waves shape shells. Then you step toward the door, shoes on, head lighter, heart floatier. As you pass through the arch, you glance back. The hammam doesn't wave goodbye. It simply fades gently into the warmth, as if it was never quite a building at all, but a pause, a held breath, a cup of tea between sentences. Outside, the sun doesn't dazzle. It glows, the kind of golden light that makes old paint look noble, laundry look sculptural, and pigeons look like they're on a very important errand. You step carefully onto the stone walkway just beyond the hammam door. Your shoes feel stiff, like they haven't forgiven you yet for walking on marble barefoot. You take a slow breath. It smells of sesame, water-soaked dust, and yesterday's orange peels. You're not in a hurry. Good. No one is. In fact, that's one of the peculiar rules of post-hammam etiquette. You must act as though you have nowhere to be, even if you do. Even if a camel caravan is waiting for your signature on a very urgent invoice. Even if your mother-in-law is halfway through baking a pomegranate stew and you were supposed to bring the cinnamon 3 hours ago. None of it matters. You've just been steamed into serenity. You are not responsible for reality yet. You begin walking, and slowly you realize something odd. The gossip has already moved. You haven't even reached the olive seller stall, and yet 2 women seated on a shaded stoop are discussing the bathhouse almond. In full detail. "He cracked it with his teeth," says one, wide-eyed, as if it were a national security incident. "With no warning," the other replies, scandalized. You recognize these 2. You passed them earlier this morning before your hammam visit. At that time, they were discussing someone's curtains and a mysteriously broken ladder. Now, they're deep in dried fruit intrigue. You slow your pace, hoping to overhear more, but they shift topics mid-sentence. "And she wrote poetry on soap? Can you imagine?" You blink. That just happened. Inside the hammam. How did they know? You glance over your shoulder. The door to the bathhouse is still visible. There's no way anyone emerged that fast. Unless, no, too ridiculous. Unless the hammam walls themselves are informants. Or the cat. Sugar. Maybe Sugar is more than he seems. You keep walking. And sure enough, at the spice stall, the old man with the crooked scale is talking to a young boy about someone named Nine. "She never leaves a towel damp," he says with something like reverence. "Folded, warm, perfect. It's like magic." The boy nods solemnly. Neither of them notice you pass. Further down, you pass a cafe where 2 teenagers are mimicking the soap poetry lady. One is pretending to carve a soap bar. The other is pretending to dramatically sniff it. They burst into laughter. Across the square, a merchant pauses mid-haggle to tell a customer, "Well, at least I don't tell ghost stories about tile grout like that guy." The customer tilts her head. She has questions. And somehow, you know she'll get answers before she even buys her lemons. You pause at a fountain. There are pigeons bathing in the shallow rim. You kneel beside them, not to splash your face, but to listen. 2 elderly men are playing a game of backgammon nearby. Their dice click like very confident crickets. So, one mutters, not looking up, "You think the almond guy and the poet are, you know?" The other raises an eyebrow. "I think," he says, moving a piece with the certainty of a man who knows too much, "that whoever lit that last candle did it with intention. You have no idea what that means. And yet, it makes perfect sense. Because here's the thing. In this town, near this bathhouse, time doesn't move in hours. It moves in story fragments. Every person carries a small piece of the bathhouse's memory. A single brushstroke of rumor, a tile's worth of narrative. And when you pass them, buying flatbread, examining apricots, adjusting the straps on a donkey, you see the story passing between hands. Like spices, like coin. No one hoards it. That's the rule. Hammam gossip isn't yours to keep. It's yours to carry a few paces, then pass along with a little extra garnish. You stop at a bakery. The bread is round, soft, warm. As the baker wraps it in paper, he hums the same tune 9 was humming in the hammam while folding towels. You ask him if he knows her. He blinks. 9? She used to bake here. Before she moved to the hammam. He lowers his voice. She was too precise for bread. If the sesame wasn't in perfect constellation, she'd start over. You smile. Sounds exactly right. You leave with the bread tucked under your arm. Behind you, a small boy is telling his grandfather the story of the ghost tile. With new details. Apparently, the tile hums in the key of B minor and only reacts to people who've never lied. Fascinating. None of that happened when you saw it. But also, who's to say it didn't? Maybe the tile is evolving. Maybe the story is. You wander a bit further until you reach a courtyard shaded by fig trees. There's a woman selling small, handmade soaps on a cloth-covered table. You stop. They're round, slightly imperfect, and smell like time and river memory. You pick one up. There, just faintly, are the carved letters. The poem is hers. The poet from the hammam. You ask the woman selling them where they come from. She shrugs. They just show up. Wrapped in steam. You place your coin gently on the table and take the soap.
Novak.
You want to carry it in your palm. Just for a while. You sit beneath the fig tree and listen. Children chase each other with giggles as weapons. A man walks by, telling a friend that someone accidentally shampooed with rose jam. A girl leans out a window and shouts, "No, I swear. Sugar really sneezed 6 times, and that means something." The day ripples with post-bathhouse energy. You realize something odd. No one is telling these stories. Not formally. They're just passing through people. Like steam curling under a doorframe. Like the scent of lavender following you home. The hammam isn't just a place. It's a filter. A warm, whispering sieve where daily life becomes folklore. And afterward, the town carries it gently in palm and tongue, never rushing it, never folding it too tightly. The sky has turned a soft watercolor gray. Not gloomy, just hushed. The kind of evening where sounds get velvety, where even the wind seems to walk barefoot. You've wandered most of the day. Not far, really. But time stretches differently when you're full of warm bread, secondhand secrets, and whatever it was that soap did to your memory. You're walking slower now. Not because you're tired, though you are, but because your body seems to know it doesn't need to hurry anymore. And besides, the town has changed its pace, too. You pass the cafe again. The teenagers are gone. The mimed poetry performance has been replaced by a quiet game of dominoes. Someone's cat has claimed their chair. Might be Sugar. Might be Sugar's cousin. You decide not to ask. There's music coming from a distant courtyard. Not lively, just a flute and a drum having a soft conversation. You don't follow it. You don't need to. You're headed back. Toward the hammam. It's closed now. The wooden doors are shut, and a thin trail of steam escapes from one of the upper vents. Like the bathhouse is exhaling the last of the day's stories. You sit across from it on a low bench carved into the wall. From here, you can see the faint outline of the door you entered through. You remember stepping in, slightly skeptical, slightly chilly, slightly late. You remember 9, the almond incident, the ghost tile, the poetry that smelled like soap. You remember the warm marble under your back and the sound of someone quietly confessing their dreams to the ceiling. You don't remember what they said, but you remember how they said it. And now here you are, clean, warm, unbothered by things that seemed very important earlier. A tiny breeze lifts the edge of your sleeve. You notice a small damp patch still drying near your elbow. It smells faintly of olive oil and steam. You smile. It's the sort of detail no one would notice, except maybe the hammam. You're not quite ready to go home, but you don't have to decide yet, because across the alley, a lantern has been lit, and beside it, an old woman is sitting on a cushion, weaving something with thick blue thread. She isn't selling anything. She isn't waiting for anyone. She's just there. And when you look at her, she nods slightly, like she knows where you've been, like she's seen it all before. Maybe she has, because here's a curious fact. Some bathhouses employed storykeepers, not official ones, not scribes with feathered pens, just quiet regulars who listened more than they spoke, who remembered which marble tile cracked first, who knew which soap recipe meant heartbreak. They didn't write anything down, but they passed the stories gently, folded into casual comments and fig jam recommendations. No historian ever recorded their names, which is a shame, because those were the people who remembered the softest truths. The truths with no empire behind them. The truths with towel lint and tea stains and somebody else's socks. You watch the woman tie off a knot and start another. And you realize, you might be one now, just a little. You've seen it. You've felt the quiet choreography of steam and laughter and too many opinions about sandals. You've walked through a place where time became scented water and gossip grew wings. And you'll carry that with you. Not loudly, just in the way you pause before folding a towel. In the way you notice the scent of lavender, even when it's not there. In the way you smile when someone tells a story that couldn't possibly be true, but probably is, because you were there. So now, if you'd like to rest, you're allowed to. You've earned it. You've traveled through warm marble halls and drifted through stories that moved as gently as the hammam's steam. You've watched soap become poetry. You've watched gossip become folklore. You've seen the quiet life of a town stitched into the folds of a towel, into the space between a candle flame and the sound of dripping water.
No kings.
No wars, just daily rituals repeated so many times they turned sacred. And maybe that's the quietest magic of all. The ability of people, ordinary, slow-moving, almond-snacking people, to turn everyday life into something worth remembering. So go ahead and close your eyes. Let the water cool. Let the marble fall silent. The hammam is resting, too. Its stones have stored enough warmth for 100 more afternoons. Its tiles are humming softly, dreaming of old stories and new ones not yet whispered. And you're welcome here. Anytime. Sleep well, traveler. And don't forget to leave your towel folded, just the way 9 showed you. The story continues tomorrow.